So welcome, Jordan.
Thank you so much for having me. What a privilege.
Oh, it's my privilege. You are you're amazing. We were just saying before we started recording that it's so nice to be around other people that are doing positive things and spreading so much positive energy into the world. And I've been watching you, and you're just amazing. I know you don't do it for the praise and the credit, but you're doing some great stuff. For so many people. I really love that. Really love that.
You're incredibly kind. I'm not sure. I'm not sure I agree with everything you say, but yeah, I appreciate your very kind words. And as you say, I think if we all just try and add a bit of positive energy to the world, I think together we can do so much. And I think also to, especially the next generation, we need to try and show them that it's not all doom and gloom. We need to put that positive energy out there and show them that great things can happen if we work together with good people.
Oh, I couldn't agree. I could not agree more. And I think it just doesn't take much. It takes one. If every person in the world did one little thing, everything would change. We'd reach a tipping point for good, and it would be fantastic.
Yeah,
I
I just don't
reckon.
know. There's so much. You switch on the TV. I'm sure it's the same for you back where you are over there, and it just seems to be doom and gloom when you switch on a news channel these days. And I try not to engage too much, on the media side, because I just want a positive life. I want to surround myself with
Yeah,
good, positive people, and
yeah.
and if you don't bring positive energy, I'm not interested. I cut you off at source. I'm going my way.
I do the same. I block people. I just don't
Yeah,
care.
yeah.
I love that so much. I haven't watched the news for probably be 12 years, I reckon. We don't watch TV other than Netflix. We watch one show every night, and at the moment we're watching Christmas movies, and it's bloody lovely.
Brilliant, brilliant. You can't go
Yeah.
wrong with a Christmas movie.
No, because they're all the same.
Yeah, yeah. And they've all got happy endings.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Now, Jordan, I'm just going to read through some of this because I can't remember it, but you're an award-winning extreme adventurer. You're a Sunday Times and New York Times best-selling author. You've got four books. You're a TV personality, a Guinness Book of Records holder, a charity fundraiser, TEDx speaker, former soldier, United Kingdom national ambassador for Army Cadets, and you are a hunter on the Channel 4 series Hunted, TV series Hunted. So I don't
And
even know where to start.
Hunted has come to Australia now as well. One of my friends is on there's an Australian version that's just filming, I think season 2 they're on now, but it did quite well last year in Australia, actually. One of my good
Oh,
friends on the show is across there, so you have to check it out. I don't know what channel it's on in your world, but it's good fun anyway.
yeah. Well, so that might make me start watching TV again.
Well, that's my plug for him. I promised him I'll give him a plug in Australia.
Oh, I wish we knew what channel he was on. That's who.
Yeah,
What's
we'll
his
find out.
name?
His name's Ben Owen. He's the intelligence officer on the Australian Hunted,
Oh, fantastic. Oh,
and he's the
so
only Brit. I think he's the only Brit on the show. In amongst you Aussies, he's the only Brit, so he'll stand out. I'm sure.
yeah. So all the Aussies will be giving him a bit of a ribbon.
I'm,
Yeah.
I'm sure.
I love it. Well, I just think there's so much, and the list that I just read out, that's not all. And as we're going to start unpacking stuff, see all the other things that you have got hidden under there. Like these things that I've read out, they're kind of like they're kind of like the tip of the iceberg, and then underneath the iceberg, you're doing so many layers of things with almost all of them. So, I want to know where it started. Like what? I know you were a troubled youth. You and that's a
you're,
good
you're
thing.
playing that. You're playing that very lightly.
Well, I've got this theory that any kid that goes to school, a teenager who really gets into trouble is probably going to end up doing fantastic things, once they sort themselves out. And then you went off to be a soldier at 16, and somehow you got into extreme adventuring, including taking on pirates. Jesus, I love it. And so, and you're a best-selling author, and then you end up now you're doing charity, you know, and a lot of charity work through your extreme adventuring. What were you like as a young boy? Were you naughty?
I was very naughty. I was a little tearaway. You know, I was always up to mischief and no good. No, you know, I wasn't. You know, I was. I say that I wasn't. You know, I was. I was somebody. I was like a lot of teenagers. I grew up in. You know, not that I grew up in a super deprived area, but I grew up in an area a town that has a lot of challenges. You know, whatever we lacked materialistically, we certainly didn't lack in love from my from our family and friends and what have you. But you know we a typical working class family. I brought up on in quite a rough area, I guess, but for me, it was just home. It's not, you know, people tell me it's rough. I didn't see it as being rough. It's only oh, you lived in that area. Oh, that's no good. You know, it's only when it's you, it's just your home and it's what you know. So I never really saw it like that. But I think, you know, when you get to 13, 14 as a teenager, wherever you are in the world, there's a lot of distractions. You start to, you know, for me, you start to, I found alcohol, I found girls, I found, you know, all sorts of other distractions. I love sport. I always loved sport, and I wasn't that good at many things in school except for sport. You know, I just loved to be kicking a football or on the athletics or cricket, whatever it was. I was a bit of an all-rounder on the sports field, and I think probably the same in the military. If you're half decent at a sport, you seem to get through life. You know, it sort of carries you through. And you know, even as a soldier, when I went in the army, because I played football to a good level, I always got out of a lot of things, and people go, oh, why is he not on today's, you know, training exercise? Oh, he's off playing football again with the army or doing whatever he's doing. And it just used to sort of carry you through, I think. And because I wasn't, you know, just like I wasn't a great student, I was certainly not a great soldier either. But I thought what I lacked as a teenager or a youngster, certainly joining the army beaten that out of me, not in a physical way, but in a, you know, when you go to conflict zones like Iraq or wherever, you have to grow up quite quickly. You know, you don't, you know, it's, dare we say, it's a life or death. So you have to grow up quickly. You have to mature. And what I don't think I had as a teenager was probably those values that I come to learn and harness as a soldier. Things like courage, things like respect for myself, for other people, loyalty, integrity, discipline especially. I think as a teenager I lacked discipline probably, but that was something that the army gave me, and something that I use in all aspects of my life today. I think discipline is a really underrated, undervalued character trait. I think it's one of those things that can really, if you can live a very disciplined life, you can accelerate your reaching your goals a lot quicker. Because I think when it comes to goals, one of the things that people lack often is consistency, and they often give up, you know, when they're actually probably not that far away from reaching wherever it is, but because they haven't got the discipline to keep pushing away. And you know, because people talk to me a lot about motivation, and motivation's great, but actually, you know, we're humans, and I know we're slightly digressing here, but I think as human beings, we're not always going to be motivated. We don't always want to jump out of bed like the world's, you know, ready to take on every day. You know, I'm not someone who, you know, I try to keep quite fit, but even though I'm an adventurer, I'm not someone who loves going to the gym. You know, I love sport, I love competitive sport, but I don't love going to lift some weights or running on a treadmill or whatever it might be. It doesn't float my boat. But what I understand is I have the discipline to go and do the things that I don't want to do, because I know that they're going to help me reach my goals and my objectives. So I think discipline for young people and consistency is really important, and something that, I definitely didn't have that as a teenager. You know, I was in trouble with the police and the law, not for, you know, I'm not a mass murderer, I'm not going on death row or anything, but things that you know, you're getting up to no good, breaching the peace and drinking alcohol underage and whatever else, you know, upsetting the locals and being a menace to society, terrorizing the older members of my community and things, I'm sure. But yeah, things that you know, I know we joke, but I'm not proud of that, and that I don't think that's good or cool. And they're the things that I do a lot of work with cadets and young people in schools and things, and I try to share my lessons, I guess, because you know, you think that that's really good and really cool, but then they have a bigger impact. When you've got a criminal record at 15, 16 years old, that's going to affect the next 5, 10 years of your life when you go for opportunities, for jobs or whatever. So you live and learn, and life has taught me a lot, and I'm still learning every day. Even as an adult now, I get things wrong, I make mistakes. But what I've also learned is you can't dwell on the past. You have to take it and take the lessons, take what you can learn from it, and then apply it to your future. And you will make mistakes, you will get things wrong. And something else I've learned more so in recent years is you also have to own your mistakes as well. If you get things wrong, sometimes it can be embarrassing, it can be tough, it can bring a lot of shame on you, but you have to hold your hand up and take responsibility when you've made a mistake, whether it's good or bad or ugly or whatever it is. The only way you're going to learn and move forward is by taking full responsibility for what you've got wrong and done wrong, I think.
Yeah. Do you reckon you had, as a little kid, those kind of morals or characteristics sitting under the surface? Do you reckon that's something you're born with, and they open up at certain parts of your life, or do you think they're things you learn? I don't know the answer to this. I'm just curious.
It's a great question. No one's ever asked me that. That's a really interesting question. And yeah, do you know what? I think there probably are deep down in all of us somewhere, but I think it's about unlocking them. And I think things like your parents, your role models in your life as a youngster, I think they play a really critical role. And I do. I have two lovely parents. My mum and dad. My father was a soldier. He was a Royal Marine. My mother worked, very hard-working lady all her life, and a wonderful woman. And they have great values. And when I look at the values that I carry today as a person, they're exactly the same as their values. My parents do so much for other people, and now I understand why. Because actually, I think you get so much more fulfillment from what you do for other people, and it took me a long time to learn that. I think I was probably quite selfish as a youngster. I was more worried about what I was going to get, but these days I focus on what I can give to the world. And I think when you flip it on its head and you change that mantra, you live a lot more fulfilling, rewarding, more peaceful life. And I'm not religious, and I'm not spiritual or anything like that. But the more I've helped people, the more the world has helped me without me asking, in a weird, wacky way, I think.
No, I agree. I was the same. I was living a bloody rock star life before I started doing this, and I thought I was, the bloody kingpin of the world. And it was all about me. But once you start helping people, it's like, wow, this is a much better way to live. Like, this is
it is.
Yeah, and you're right. The rewards come without you even asking for them. But do you reckon why did you go to the army at 16? Was that because your dad was in the army and he said, "Right, oh boy, you're going to learn some lessons"? Or
no. Do you know what? He was even though he was he was in the military. He was never someone who pushed me. I think my dad was someone who saw that whatever I did, I needed to be happy and fulfilled. Probably he noticed that at an early age. And I can remember even when I was in military training, I was thinking about giving it up. And he wasn't like, "No, you've got to stay and see this through." He just gave me a normal, let's think about this, and let's think about you're going through these hardships now, but when you come out the other side, it's not all going to be getting shouted at 5 o'clock in the morning and running around cold and wet, or which isn't the army. That's what we perceive it to be, and what it is when you're in training and when you're on exercise. But actually, the army is very much quite a normal life when you're in it, except for, of course, when you go to war and conflict. But when you're in the barracks in the UK, it's actually a very easy job there, I say. Some people might not agree with me, but you play lots of sport, and you get your 3 meals a day, and you finish at 4 or 5 o'clock, and in civilian life, what I've learned in the last 10 years is people are still working till ridiculous hours, doing ridiculous days, grafting and working properly, what I call proper work. So when soldiers are in camp in the barracks, they're not doing proper work, I can promise you. They're doing everything to try and get out of doing proper work.
Maybe we know.
But yeah, I've probably upset half of the world's military saying that, but to be honest, soldiers are incredible. They put their lives on the line for their nation on a daily basis when they go on operations, and you can't put a price on that for sure. But yeah, it's what sorry, I've sidetracked now. What was my question?
I don't know. I don't
Yeah,
remember. I think it
I was
was,
just
oh no,
thinking.
did your dad talk
I
to
was
you?
more worried about upsetting half of the British military. Then I was thinking, where are we going with this?
Well, you did leave the army, so you stayed for 10 years. But why did you end up leaving? Was that to do extreme adventure,
Ah, yes.
or
No, sorry, you asked me why I went to the army.
went in?
It wasn't my, yeah.
Yeah,
So why did I start and why did I leave? I do you know what? To be honest and completely honest and transparent, it was because I left school with no qualifications. Because
yeah,
again, I just didn't apply myself. I thought in my head, I'm going to play sport. I'm going to,
yeah.
like a lot of kids, I'm going to be a footballer or something. I don't need to work for a living. And then I realized at 16 when I wasn't, playing professional football and I wasn't getting paid tens of thousands of pounds a week that I'm probably going to have to get a job now. And because I didn't have any qualifications, of course, it becomes very difficult to get a
Yeah,
job. And not only that, you then have to, because you have no qualifications, you can't go to college or university like a lot of people and students do these days or those days. And so I, to be honest, it was process of elimination. What are you going to do? You can't get a job. You've got no qualifications. You can't go to college, university because you're not eligible. So the military was like the default option. Well, let's go to the army. And then what I learned actually within my first hour of walking into that army recruitment office was that even when you want to join the army, if you want to choose what job you do, you need some qualifications. So
yeah.
for me, the option was you can go and be a frontline soldier in a tank or on foot. And I looked at the poster on the wall and it was a big sexy tank, and I thought that's what I want to go and do. I'm going to be a tank driver. And that was it for 10 years. I spent my life in a tank regiment, learning my trade as a frontline combat soldier, which was amazing. It took me around the world. Of course, many highlights and many lowlights as well. When you go on operations, you go to war and conflict zones. Tragically, you lose people, you lose friends, colleagues, heroes, in fact, and that's obviously one of probably the low lights of not only being in the army but of life. When you see firsthand good honest men and women lose their lives, that's tragic, and I think you live with that forever. But if there is ever a positive to come out from losing close friends on operations, I think for me, if I could, I always try to find the positives, and for me the positive is that since those days, I've really had a sense of gratitude for every day in my life. Knowing that I try to use what happened on operations every day whether I'm on adventures, whether I'm going through a tough time in maybe my relationship or with my daughter or whatever it might be. I always use the fuel that I always think sort of what my friends would do to have one more day here or one more
Yeah.
breath or one more cup of tea with their family. And I think I'm very lucky and privileged to be alive. So, don't sweat the small things. Don't stress over a lot of things that would have normally stressed me out many years ago, because I just think, tomorrow is never guaranteed. And when you've when you've been a soldier and you've looked death in the face firsthand and seen what it can do, and I think you have a real sense of gratitude for life. And also, I think that's probably why I go back to a lot of dangerous places on my adventures and on my charity sort of work, and try to help those that have experienced that I saw and met that have experienced hardship. Because the life that I'm not super rich or wealthy, but my life is very privileged compared to a lot of people in the world, just based on the fact that I don't struggle to find food, and I have somewhere to sleep that's warm and safe every night. And when you've seen that actually a large proportion of the world and young people out there don't have that, and they don't even have families to look after them, and that when you've seen that firsthand, I think you can't help be compelled to do something about it. And sometimes, I recently just returned from the Horn of Africa, and I took a group of 12 people there, and I'd spent working working volunteering with the charity for about 5 years, building a school on the Horn of Africa.
Yeah.
And I'd always come back, and we use social media to sort of show people this journey of this school that we've been building for these children. And people was like, "Oh, that's brilliant, that's great," but what I found was they never felt the emotion that I felt from going there. So I decided I wanted to take 12 volunteers to go there, and actually now all those 12 volunteers, it's amazing because I've been going there for 5, 6, 7 years, and I felt this every time I went there, and nobody else has felt it. They've just said, oh, that's amazing, that's great. But actually taking these 12 volunteers and watching the impact of them volunteering at this school that we built, and seeing their interaction with the children when they've been volunteering to teach lessons or help give them some vital aid or clothes or toothpaste, toothbrushes. Now all these people are saying to me, Jordan, when can we go again? That was amazing. I want to do more. And I knew for many years that if you go there and you see it and firsthand, you will do something. If the human inside you can't help you but want to do something good for people less fortunate. And it was amazing for me to see these 12 volunteers that just came back from Africa with me, to see how now motivated they are to go back and do more. And because for years I just couldn't, I tried my best to explain to people what I was seeing and experiencing, but no one really got it. Of course, they thought it was great and inspiring, but they didn't feel what I felt. And now to see them go there and to watch them interact with the children and come back and go, now I get it, was just amazing. Really moving for me.
I love it. And you've raised, I think it was over £1 million for charity, and built that school and done a stack more other things. And a lot of it you do through your adventures. Like you I don't know, you can explain it better than me, but like you've circumnavigated what am I saying, Britain, and all around the bottom of Africa and that, just to raise money. I'm sure you get something out of it too, the sense of achievement. But did you, when you started Extreme Adventures, did you just want to do it for you, just to feel great, I'm doing this? Or did you think, like, at what point doing it did you think, I can raise money out of this, I can start to help other people with this?
Yeah. To be honest, I started, I guess, probably 7, 8 years ago now. For me, I wanted to spend more time outdoors. I had a bit of I guess like a lot of us, you go through a bad patch to find, you got to go in the troughs to be able to come out and climb the mountain, so to speak. And yep. I had a breakdown in my relationship with the mother of my daughter. I was in a relationship for over 10 years with the mother of my daughter, and because of me working away all the time, I think, I'm a loyal guy. I'm honest. I'm not someone who hurt anybody or cheat on anybody or anything like that. But I had all my priorities wrong. I was getting sucked into this corporate world. I was working in London in the city, and I was working in private security, and I was mixing with a lot of people who, ex-military people, but it's very easy when you leave the military and you go especially into private security, to get blinded, because you get paid a hell of a lot more than you ever did as a soldier. And your lifestyle becomes, a lot more, I don't want to say better, because I don't feel it is better now when I look back. But at the time, when I was driving, the latest car, or buying the biggest house, or the fancy watch, or whatever it was, I was getting sucked into this life of materialism where I wanted bigger and better things. And that became quite, if I'm honest, quite obsessive. I wanted to. It was like I perceived success on status and not on how I felt. And I think that's quite common in the world. People measure, not everybody, but a lot of people measure success by those materialistic things. And actually, what I learned was that actually with those things and chasing those things had a really adverse and negative effect on my family, on my mental health, on my physical health. And I was trying to, what dare I say? I think I was trying to be someone that isn't me. I was trying to live up to what I thought the world wanted me to look like and be. And, if people say, oh, Jordan, he's doing so great, he's successful. And I felt that I had to keep and maintain this facade and lifestyle that people wanted me to look like I was doing, which wasn't healthy. It wasn't nice. And in fact, it was the opposite. It was very toxic. It was a toxic environment. And unfortunately, the relationship broke down, which took me to a really dark place with my mental health. And, 7, 8 years ago, if you'd have told me about things like anxiety and depression, I thought they were I thought they were made up terms that people who didn't want to go to work used. But what I come to learn was, I thought it was like if you were lazy, you say, oh, I'm anxious or depressed. I never, and that's very, at the time, to think that is very not only naive but disrespectful, because I've experienced that for many years now, and it's a very serious medical condition, and it's, I'll be honest, I still take medication every day. I still take tablets for depression and anxiety. And not that I'm really, miserable or depressed right now, but what I found was when I tried to come off the tablets, I dipped quite significantly. So it's a tough one. And yeah, I guess, how did I get into adventure? It was initially going out and spending more time outdoors as part of my own sort of therapy to engage with the natural world. And I just felt that regardless of all the medication and tablets that I was taking, the thing that made me feel good again was being outside. And and I think when you're, as a soldier, when you leave the army, or any part of the military, you lose something, and you lose a sense of purpose and pride that perhaps when you're a soldier you didn't even realize was there. But it's like you only realize that it was there when it's gone and it's been taken away from you.
Yeah.
You one minute you're a soldier with your medals and you're polishing your boots and you look smart. And I remember when you're a soldier, you think that's a pain in the ass to go and polish your medals every night and polish your boots. The moment you leave and that's taken away from you, now I can't wait for Remembrance Service days where I can polish my medals and polish my boots, because I get that little bit of one day to be a bit of a soldier again, and be very proud and wear my regimental tie and have a shave or whatever it might be. And those are things that you hate doing when you're in the army, but the moment you leave, you can't wait to do those again. It's a very strange experience, and I think you lose a lot of sense of purpose. And it took me many years to find what. After leaving the military, it took me a good 7-8 years, I think, to find what is my purpose in this world again. And actually, I find it was twofold. I've come to learn that one was going out on these adventures, and which were great for me on a selfish basis. They were great because, one, I'm essentially going around the world ticking off my bucket list and trying to convince sponsors to pay. I'm trying to convince sponsors to pay for my holiday in the purest form. But of course, what you try to do with that is I try to use it for a force of good in the world by raising money, whether it's for children and education in very challenging countries and environments, but also to raise awareness of important causes that need championing. I think as a professional adventurer, people think it is just going on holidays, and I know we joke about it, but actually I take my responsibility as an adventurer very seriously in the fact that young people are looking in at my behavior, at what I'm doing, and I think you have. One thing that I believe, especially in this world of social media, is that if you have influence of any sort, whether it's on television, radio, podcast, I think you have a responsibility to use it for a force of something positive. And it really pains me when I see all these reality TV shows and that you get these girls and boys with millions of followers, and all they do is use it to try and sell to the latest product or whatever it is, the tanning product or the teeth whitener or whatever ridiculous thing it is. Where for me, why not use that follower and influence to go and inspire young people, or to change someone's life, or help people with a disability or cancer or mental health or whatever it is that's your passionate thing. Use your profile to do something positive in the world. I think it's almost criminal not to do that. I think if you've got a platform, exactly like what you're doing with Get Off the Bench, you're trying to hopefully speak with engaging, inspiring, positive, supportive, encouraging types of people that are trying to do positive things. And I think that's really, I really respect that. It's really commendable, because it's important. And I think the world needs more of that.
Yeah. Oh, I do too. I just think if everybody just did that little bit, it would be an amazing place to live. Anyway, we can't make others do everything. we just got to inspire.
Exactly. That's what we got to try and do. We got to try and inspire people to get off the bench and add some positive vibes to the world.
Exactly. And so I'm really interested is, when you've been, because you've seen a lot of these places where people are really suffering, has there been any place that you've been to where that's just broken your heart? Absolutely, absolutely broken you.
Yeah, I think many times, I probably every journey that I go on, I'm shed a tear for some
Yeah.
reason. Although I'm a soldier or adventurer, I'm pretty soft inside. It doesn't take much for me to turn on the waterworks. I think, yeah, I've been to many places in, post-conflict zones, conflict zones where you see hardship and extreme
Yeah.
suffering, and you just want to pick people up and put them in your bag and take them home, and
Yeah.
it is tragic, and for me, again, I try to use that as fuel to want to try and do more and to try and help more, but what I've also learned is that as one person, as an individual, you can't change the world, but what you can absolutely do is you can change the world for a handful of people and children or whatever it might be. And if you can change the world for a couple of people, then you absolutely should,
Yeah.
And one of the things, education is really interesting for me, and the irony of me leaving school with no qualifications to now being like a champion of education, the
Yeah.
irony isn't lost on me, I know, but I really have seen, especially in conflict zones, the power of education to inspire hope. When the amount of children that I meet that they don't want a big house, or they don't want even that, they're not looking for anything fancy or flashy. They just want to learn, and it really, to see children and who just want to learn and go to school or study because they know that one day that might be their ticket to something better is really, it's really sad, but also really encouraging as well, at the same time. And I think, things like, for me, to be able to go and, build a school or provide some funding for some educational resources, all I'm doing is I'm doing something I enjoy by going on an adventure. And if something positive can come from that, and of course it's not just me, it relies on lots of incredible volunteers. I'm just the lucky one who gets to go and do the fun bit of adventure, but actually it relies on an amazing team of people, whether they're managing a social media or a website, or the sponsors that allow these things to happen. The world is full, as you know, of amazing, selfless people who that they're not celebrities, they're not famous, that they're real unsung heroes who do things for the right reasons. And I'm very fortunate to know and work with lots of those people, those volunteers, whether it's in the cadets, whether it's in charities. The world is full of amazing, selfless people, and actually, they're the people who inspire me. They're the people, when I think, I want to go and get involved with another charity and try and help. But it's those people that I look at and go, yeah, I do actually. Even when I'm doubting myself, I look at those people, because sometimes you do think, when we were trying to build a school, the stress that came with raising, hundreds of thousands of pounds was, when you go in to build a school in a country, and I'm not a builder, I'm not a project manager, so I'm dealing with politicians, I'm dealing with government, I'm dealing with the Foreign Office, I'm dealing with, corrupt builders and tradesmen who want to add more money onto the build fees than what it costs, and you're dealing with all these different issues, and it becomes like running a business or running or having another job, and because sometimes people say to me, oh, Jordan, I want to fundraise for a good cause. What shall I do it for? And I say to him, I can't tell you that, because you've got to feel it. You've got to be passionate about what you're fundraising for, and because whatever that flame is inside you, that's what's going to get you out of bed every morning, and that's what's going to keep you going when you hit all these obstacles that will arrive on whatever you're fundraising for. If you're trying to build something in a foreign country, whether it's a well or a school or a hospital, you will have so many hurdles to overcome, and it'd be easy just to give up at the first hurdle. But you have to. It goes back to that discipline again, and saying, I'm going to keep going, and as long as you're moving forward in life, it doesn't matter what the pace is. As long as you're moving in the right direction, and you surround yourself with good, positive people as well, because as you will know as well as me, the world has got a lot of detractors. It's got a lot of negative Nellies, as we would call them here, and these people will pull you off track. They will try to damage and destroy your dreams and your ambitions and your objectives. They will tell you what you can't do. They'll never tell you what you can do. And you gotta focus on the prize. You gotta keep your eyes on the mission, and let it go in one ear and out the other, because the world there is a lot of negativity out there, and I try to extract that at all costs, to be honest.
But it's not only the other people around us, it's also ourselves. We've got this negative chatter that goes on all the time. So if we're hanging around with negative people, they're just fueling our negative chatter. And it's so much easier to be negative, and listen to all that negative crap than it is to fight through it. And like you say you're in the ditch before you hit the mountain. I always say you got to fight through the blackberries before you hit the beautiful open fields. It's the same
it's true,
thing.
isn't it? It's true,
It's
yeah,
really
and
true.
it is. But I also think as well, what I've learned in my life, it's in the depths of those dark times where, and we've all had them dark times. That's unfortunately part of life. But it's in the depths of those dark and horrible times that we learn what we're truly made of. So.
Yeah.
I think those obstacles and those challenges that we get, whether they're in our personal or professional lives, they are also incredible opportunities for personal growth. They are what make us more resilient. They make us wiser. And I know at the time, you see it in relationships often, where people get into a relationship and they come out and it's the end of the world. And for 3 or 6 months, you see for 3 to 6 months after a serious relationship, it's a horrible place full of anxiety, depression, lots of different emotions. But then when they come out a year later, they look back and the lessons that you take from that period in your life will put you in great stead for every other relationship that you go into. And I think you really have to harness that growth mindset as a human, and not always focus on the obstacle, because I think, as I talk a lot about this with young people, because it's very easy to look at the obstacles and forget the opportunities, and always where there's an obstacle, there's 100% always an opportunity. And sometimes you can be blinded and not see it because you're so focused on the obstacle that I heard a great analogy a few weeks ago, and it was talking about skiers on a mountain. When I'm not a skier, but when the skiers are coming down the mountain, when they're teaching you to ski, they tell you to focus on the white path ahead, because what people do is they look at the trees thinking, I've got to get out of I've got to miss the trees. But if you're focused on the trees, you're going to hit those trees, because that's and the ski instructor I was listening to, I think it was another podcast or something, and he was saying that, we tell people to focus on the white path, because if you focus on the white path and the opportunity to get through, you will get through. But if your first thought is don't hit the trees, you're going to guess what? You're going to hit those trees.
Exactly.
And I think, and I think that's the bit like life in general. If you focus on the negatives and you focused on the obstacles, you're going to have a tough ride, I think, So you have to have that growth mindset. And I remember when I was doing my paddle around Britain a few years ago, I got stuck on a beach in Scotland because the wind and the weather and the storms were against me. So I remember I was sat on this beach, and it was this Scottish weather. It was terrible. It was windy. It was cold, and I couldn't make any progress for, I don't know, 4 or 5 days or something. And I remember thinking, I've been paddling for like 5 months and I want to go home, see my family, my friends. I really wanted to give up at this point, and I was mentally drained. And I remember thinking, because of the weather, I was held for 5 days. I remember thinking, sat on this beach for 5 days, I need to go home. I can't do this anymore. And then I spoke to a psychologist friend of mine, and she was saying, yeah, but I said, I'm tired. I'm injured. I'm missing my family. I want to go home for Christmas. And she said, yeah, but Jordan, just think, right? You've been paddling for 5 months, and now you've got the first ever proper break for about a week or whatever it was. You can like go and relax. You can let your body recover. You can go down the road, get a decent meal. You can have a decent night's sleep. And there was all these positive things that she was telling me, and none of them had even entered my mind, because I was just focused on the weather, the injury, the hardship of what I'd gone through. But actually over here in the other side of my brain was all these things that I'd not even considered, that were all positive, really great things. And it's having that ability. And I think in the psychology world, they call it reframing. It's reframing reframing a negative thought into not necessarily a positive one, but at least a neutral one, a one that's not going to have an adverse effect on you. And again, it just goes back to taking your cap off and seeing things from a different perspective. And actually the situation hadn't changed, but because my mindset towards the situation had changed, I actually felt so revitalized and refreshed that I went away, got a shower for the first time in weeks and had a night's sleep and a good meal. And then actually I was ready to go again a few days later and tackle the world and carry on paddling for another month or two. And it was just by that simple adjustment in my brain of reframing the situation, and it can be so helpful. And I think for me, if I can get young people to understand that at an early age, I just think life will be so much more fun and fulfilling for them if they can, approach every situation with a growth mindset.
Yeah. Yeah, I love it. Speaking of paddling around Britain, I don't know. I'm just going to say I don't know why the hell you did it, but anyway, and I'm not being negative. I'm just like, fuck, it does my head in thinking about it.
I did it. I don't even know why I did it.
Well, you got a good book out of it. Anyway, so you got 4 books, The Power of the Paddle, Citadel, Running for My Life, and Around the World. But the first one, The Power of the Paddle, is about that. It is about that journey, isn't it? Around,
yeah.
So
it's essentially, The Power of the Paddle, which for me is, it's the latest book. It's without being biased or anything, it's my favorite book because it has a lot of meaning, because we went on the paddle to raise the final 100,000 plus to build the school on the Horn of Africa, and we really needed to raise the money. And actually the paddle came about because COVID came. I was actually doing another challenge, which was running cold marathons around the world, but because COVID came along, everyone couldn't fly anymore overseas. So like the rest of the world, I was sat at home getting quite depressed and miserable, and I said, what can I do that doesn't involve flying but also allows me to be socially distanced from everyone? So I thought, well, I know, let's go and try and paddle around Great Britain, because no one's done that before. It's never been done. And actually, it'd be a very easy way in this COVID environment to engage through social media, the British public or the world public, if you like, because they need some entertainment of some sort. And it was great. So we went and I paddled for 149 days and 2,377 kilometers of the British coastline. And unfortunately, it came to an end with COVID once again in Scotland on Christmas Eve in 2020. But we raised the money we needed to. We built the school. So actually, again, I just feel very privileged, because people always say, oh, it must have been one of the hardest things that you ever did. But for me, I just focus on, we built a school and I got to have an adventure while most of the world was in lockdown. So I am very privileged and lucky, and I'm very grateful for that opportunity. So I have nothing negative to take from that experience. Even though we didn't get to complete the whole circumnavigation because COVID stopped us after 5 months. And a good friend of mine, actually, Brendan Prince, he just paddled around Great Britain and beat my world record, and which is amazing because he did it for a great cause. He's a great bloke, and I helped him where I could with advice and tips, and it was amazing. And people say, "Oh, you must be gutted that this guy did it," and I couldn't be any more not gutted because he was such a lovely man, and he did it with the best of purpose. He was raising awareness for water safety and saving lives at sea, because his backstory again was he was a teacher and a water sports sort of fanatic, and he unfortunately found a situation where he tried to rescue some people from the water in his hometown in England, and he couldn't save them. He tried to resuscitate them, and they lost their lives in his arms, so to speak. And his purpose was to go and raise awareness of water safety, which is amazing. What an amazing purpose with an incredibly powerful backstory. So I absolutely salute him, respect him, and there were, again, no negative. There's no need to be anything negative. He's inspiring, but people always say, "Oh, you must have been devastated when he went and did it after you." I was like, absolutely not. I couldn't have been prouder of the guy.
Yeah, but that isn't that how we should be. We should be lifting people up. We should be celebrating other people's successes, and not being jealous.
We should be because we should be, because so many people, unfortunately, when you move up the ladder and you try to do great things, there is also a small cohort of the world that will try to pull you down the higher you go up that ladder. And you will have seen it on the news. I don't really get into politics and and any other topic controversial issues. But you may have seen this new, in the UK, this Prince Harry and Meghan saga, what is unfolding. And again, regardless of what we think of it, the world is being so nasty towards to individuals who are just trying to live their life on their terms. And regardless of what we think of how they've exited the royal family or whatever else, they're still two humans that have thoughts, have feelings. So when I see the media and the British public, or certain individuals around the world, taking really nasty pot shots at them, I just think these are humans who like us, they will go to bed thinking about these horrible words, and I just don't get it, me. As you say, you lift other people, and be positive, and the world's a nicer place for everyone.
I agree. I've been watching some of that, and it disgusts me how people can be so bloody cruel, and you don't even know them. You're pitching your set of values against people that you don't even know. So I agree. Anyway, let's not give them airtime because they bloody arseholes. Those people. Yeah. But you when you did the paddle, I just want to read this out. I love this, that you faced angry fishermen, busy shipping lanes, military firing ranges, crazy teenagers on jet skis, psychotic jellyfish, and COVID. I'm laughing because it's kind of almost unreal, but I don't think it'd be fun. What tell us about? I don't know what's the worst, the psychotic jellyfish. That would have been the worst.
Oh yeah, they were like, I feel a bit. No, but speaking to someone down under, in your part of the world, I feel quite embarrassed to be talking about jellyfish being one of the harsh creatures of the sea when you're dealing with like great white sharks and other majestic creatures of the ocean. I feel like I'd be quite ashamed to say about a nasty jellyfish now, but let me tell you, these jellyfish were like the SAS of the jellyfish. These were serious soldiers of jellyfish. These were like a battalion of them. And do you know what? Do you know the jellyfish? It was quite interesting because people would say, well, how do you get stung by jellyfish when you're on a paddleboard? And actually, most of the time I was stung by jellyfish, it was actually when I was trying to have a break and had my legs hanging in the water, just having my lunch or having a drink of water. But yeah, it was. For me, I think probably the most serious injury was there was a jet skier who had been drinking all day on the south coast of England in the summer. Yeah. And I don't know, you've probably seen it over there where you are, but they're like the rebels of the ocean, jet skiers over here, and that they were trying to flip, paddleboard, or surf, as anyone doing water sports. They come up alongside you and try to flip you off your board. And this guy ended up flipping me off, but I ended up hitting a sort of a big piece of steel in the ocean, a groin, what we call a sea groin, a piece of wood it was actually. And it cut me. And the problem, it wasn't actually that painful at first, but because I didn't treat it, I got infected, and I was then in hospital every few days going back for checkups. And but it wasn't it wasn't that tragic as it sounds. I think fishermen, what did I learn? Fishermen don't like paddlers when they're trying to do that. When they're trying to do their fish. I remember one time I was paddling. I remember it was probably in about August 2020, so it was a nice day, and I remember looking along this straight coastline, and I turned around this sort of corner on this headland, and I looked down this coastline, and there must have been 300-400 fishermen all stood with their rods, and I just looked at them and I thought, they're not going to let me past here. And I was like, what can I do? And I remember none of them even flinched. I was like a real pain in their ass to come along, and they just didn't like paddlers. And I had to get down and lie on my board like in a pencil position and just use my arms to paddle under their lines. And they were
no.
And every one of those 300-400 shouted some form of abuse, and they were, a lot of them were sort of Eastern European. I think there was like a Polish fishing competition or something, and they all give me some abuse in their native language. It definitely wasn't a polite what they were saying. So that was fun, but it was just like any adventure. You have ups and downs, highs, lows, but like any other adventure in the world, I think that the real highlights for me were the people I met along the way, because I would arrive on my paddleboard on, in a village on a beach that I'd never heard of in my life, somewhere on the UK coastline. I would arrive as a complete stranger with my paddleboard, and And then I would have people give me a bed for the night. They would give me a meal, a hot drink, give me, a ride for a shower or something. And I just met the most wonderful people. I think, I don't know, but there's something around the world. People who live on the coastline seem to have a spirit that is just like, they have this sense of hospitality and warmth that you don't really get in major cities. I don't see it in London, in Manchester, Birmingham.
Yeah.
When they're in the cities, people are just like 100 mile an hour busy in these busy worlds. But on the coastline, everyone's a chilled out dude who just wants to, enjoy life. It seems it's a bit weird.
Well, I'll challenge you on that. Except for the pirates that you wrote about that you had to tackle, they're not chilled out dudes. So in your
No, they weren't. They weren't.
in your book Sight
Yeah,
to
so
Death.
this was in another chapter in my life actually. So when I left the military in sort of 2010, for the next sort of 5 years or so, I went out to work in private security, and I went out to the east and west coast of Africa providing armed security. So yeah, when you talk about pirates, people think you're on another planet, but yeah, pirates are real. Pirates are real. It was in 2009, 10, 11, it was big business, especially for Somali pirates on the east coast of Africa. And, they were I guess, a menace to society. And people don't realize that seafarers and these amazing people who bring us our goods on ships every day around the world, they literally make the world go round. They're like doing this thankless task of bringing us, whether it's our technology, our food, our drink, our phones, our TVs, whatever it is, our house furniture. This all comes across the ocean on a ship. And these amazing seafarers do the most incredible job. And yeah, randomly, I ended up like a lot of other ex-British military for this period of 2009, 10, 11, 12. And still today in some parts, but for me, it was those years where I was protecting ships from pirates. And pirates are very real characters. They're not people who have an eye patch and a parrot on their shoulder and a wooden leg. They are people who are very determined, armed criminals, let's say. So yeah, I had an interesting period of my life, which I wrote about, where we had a few interactions and a few close shaves, we could say, with the pirates. But again, it was, when I look back, it was an amazing period of my life, which allowed me to grow as a person. I was put in some challenging situations which I had to deal with and manage, and I got to see a lot of the world. And even though I was in some challenging situations, while I was waiting for ships to come along, I spent half my life in places like the Seychelles, Mauritius, Dubai. It was a lot more glamorous than a lot of people thought that period of my life, perhaps.
If you made it, if you survived the bloody pirate.
If you survived, yeah, of course, yeah. If you survived, yeah, but you got paid very well for it as well. It was that period of my life where I was getting sucked into just one more job because we're going to earn, X amount of dollars at the time or whatever it was.
The pirates are everywhere. I've told people about pirates. Since 2016, I went to the Philippines and I learned about all the pirates in the south of the Philippines. And I've been telling people about it since, and they're like, "There's no such thing as pirates." And I'm like, "There is. There really is."
They're out there. They're out there. They'll get you if you're not careful.
Yeah. I don't want to see him. And you've also got Running for My Life is another book, and which you're running across very, very dangerous countries trying to raise money. And see, you can't just run across England. Like,
no, that's boring, isn't it? Yeah, running through England. Why do you want to run through England when you can run through Afghanistan or somewhere? No, do you know what? We joke about it, but actually, the Running for My Life, Running Dangerously project was amazing, because actually, I run, when I go running, I run in weird, wacky places. Like, I just came back last year from Antarctica. I run in places. I don't run because I'm a great runner, because I'm fast. I run for the adventure and run to try and obviously make a difference to other people's lives and so on. But running through Afghanistan, Iraq, and running in Somaliland, I saw more acts of kindness and love in those countries than I've probably ever seen in the UK. Wow. People, if you switch on the news, again, the news will tell you these are full of countries full of terrorism and crime and bad people doing nasty things. I can promise you, from my experience in those countries, I've seen more acts of kind humanity, love, support, encouragement than I've ever seen. When I went in these countries, most of the time I was there, I didn't pay for anything. People fed me, they give me a bed for the night. You wouldn't even get that in the UK. People, complete strangers, helping you in the way that the local people. And also, a lot of these countries, especially Afghanistan, they're up there for me with the most beautiful countries in the world. But of course, we only see the snapshot of war that happens. That's the doom and gloom. But amazing countries with amazing people. And what I've learned in the world is actually 95%, maybe even more, 99% of the world is full of good, humble people and there's only 1% of the world that are nasty, that want to cause harm, that want to be trolling or destroying other people's lives. But most of the world are good people that will help, and that was very prevalent in Afghanistan, Iraq, Somalia. So although of course they're dangerous places if we don't manage the risks, I'm not an adrenaline junkie. I always manage the risk, and if it's too dangerous, I certainly wouldn't be going there. But we, with local networks and fixers in place and doing risk assessments, monitoring the networks, we always make sure that we're managing risks. I'm a former soldier, so I'm used to dealing with risk and working in harsh conditions. But they were great adventures for me. I have no regrets, and amazing countries as well. I have a huge amount of respect for the local people in all of those countries.
Yeah. That's good. And then you've got your last book, which is Around the World, which you did with your daughter, Evie Grace. And it's a colouring in book for all the countries in the world. And not only that, I was reading about it the other day. It's got little spots where what did you learn about this country, and what language do they speak, and what's their flag, and all of that sort of stuff. And I did read a testimonial, and I just loved it, where a woman said it saved everything during COVID, that she used it for her kids, and she learned, just kept them engaged for the whole time of COVID, and she learned so much as well. So what a beautiful book.
Oh, it was amazing. I've always been fascinated by flags, and my daughter, we had a New Year's resolution a few years ago where she wanted to learn all the capital cities of the world. And I don't know if she can still do it now, but a few years ago she could recite all the capitals of the world, which I certainly couldn't do that and can't do it. And it's a great party trick as well, because you can sit there around the table at Christmas and say, right, what's the capital of Bahamas, or Kenya, and she just, as a 11, 12-year-old, she could just bang it out like that. And it was a great little part. I'm not sure she'd still be able to do it now, because she hasn't stayed current and recited them, but she was really, really brilliant at it. And we just wanted to do something to help the National Health Service and raise awareness of the great work they were doing, raise a little bit of money for charity. So it kept us busy, because we were designing the booklet throughout lockdown, and then we published it, and it was a great little sort of daddy-daughter project. And I learned, for me it was amazing as well, learning about the flags and the countries of the world, because again, there's some fascinating flags, and because the history of why a flag is a flag, and the history, there's certain flags in the world that have weapons on them, and I wanted to know why a country decided to put, an AK-47 on a flag. What does that say to the rest of the world? And just all these little sort of weird, wonderful things that I found out in this sort of around the world booklet that we made. But great fun for a great cause, and it was equally as fulfilling and rewarding for us doing it.
I love it. And it's so good for her too, because it's teaching her at a really young age that if we can make a difference, and you can make a difference at any age too. And I think that's what we miss often, is a lot of kids want to do things and we dismiss them. We're kind of like, when you grow up, you do that when you grow up. But you're obviously one of those parents, which I love, who says, the kid says, I want to do something. You say, let's do it. Let's do that.
Yeah, no, I try to be. I'm certainly, I'm absolutely not the perfect dad or anything like that, but I try to do my best, and I think that's all you can do in life. I don't always get it right, and I'm still learning about, 13 years on of being a father, I'm still learning. And obviously, because I'm not with a mother, we have our challenges sometimes, but you can only do your best. And everyone, for me, my daughter's my greatest achievement in life. I don't know how I managed to produce such a wonderful little human, because she's very different than me when I was her age.
Well, she's only seeing the good of you. Well,
Yeah,
maybe
she
this
is.
will,
If she knew
yeah.
me, if she knew me 30 years ago, she'd have a different outlook, I'm sure.
I think a lot of us can say that. I think a lot. So, and lastly, your the TV show Hunted. Tell us about that, because now you've got me intrigued. You're going to have some of my listeners intrigued. They're going to want to find it in Australia. So, how does it work? When I first read it, I thought you were a hunter, like going around shooting animals. I'm like, oh,
No, no, no,
that's
no,
not
no, no,
good.
no. No, absolutely not. No. So hunted. Yeah. So we're on like series 7 or 8 in the UK. We've been doing this for 7 or 8 years. But yeah, it came out in Australia, and I'd really like what I don't know. I'm not familiar with the networks in Australia, but whatever channel it's on, I'm told it was like the best rated of whatever it was on that time of year. And I know that they're going to film another one. But essentially the concept is, and it's the same concept and format in Australia, is we take a team of military, ex-police, ex-law enforcement, intelligence professionals. Some are still serving, some are ex. And we basically get like a group of fugitives, not real ones, people who've applied to go on this game show. They're not criminals or anything like that, or killers or anything. These are people who have come on the show as contestants. And we send them across the whole UK. We literally drop them somewhere where they don't know where they are, and they say, right, you've got a month, 25 days, and you've got to survive on your own, on the run. You can go anywhere you want, you can speak to anyone you want. And us as the hunters, our job is to catch them. And we're using like CCTV, where we're interrogating their family members, we're checking that we're hacking their social media accounts. We're basically trying to, as it says, hunt them down. And if they get to the end in the UK, they win £100,000, and probably something similar in Australia. I don't know, maybe more, I'm not sure. But so they're all competing against each other. So if 2 people get to the end, they get 50,000 each. If 1 person does, they get to 100. And our job as the hunters is to get out there using all the intelligence available, all the public sightings. We put wanted posters on the internet, and we're trying to encourage the public to help us. And it's like a giant real life game of hide and seek or cat and mouse, around the nation. And we use helicopters, we use fast rib boats, we use all the latest technology for tracking. So it's real fun. It's exciting. There's a lot of adrenaline. People do silly things, as you can expect. They try and disguise themselves. They try and go underground, undercover. And normally we catch them by little mistakes that they make. They leave little breadcrumbs everywhere using their bank cards. We trace the bank statements to see, where they took out that cash. Where was the CCTV on that bank machine? It's the most, certainly in the UK, and I'm sure in Australia, it's two of the most surveillanced countries in the world. So it's very difficult to go missing when you have so many resources allocated to finding you. And that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to outwit all these ex-military, police, intelligence professionals. And if they do it, they get a nice cash prize. And if they don't, they have to go back to their lives with a lot of embarrassment and shame.
I love that you say there's so much surveillance. I keep saying to people are watching you, and they're like, nah. And I'm like, if you got an iPhone, you're being watched. So don't bloody.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, 100%.
Don't think you're not.
Yeah, check it out in Australia on one of your networks. But I'm sure you love it. It's a great format. It's not your typical reality show, because what I like about it is the people involved are all professionals who have done the job for in the real world. They're not people who are trying to seek a bit of fame from a reality show. They're people who have harnessed skills over 30-40 year careers and are using them to show the world what our security services can do and things like that. So it's brilliant.
Oh, that's amazing. Yeah, I'm going to try and look it up. I really am. I absolutely love this conversation with you. What's next? What's your next challenge?
Yeah, so the North Pole in April next year. I'm off to the North Pole to run a marathon on top of the world. That'll be probably the next adventure in sort of April time. So yeah, I need to. I'm gonna. Well, we got Christmas now for the next week or two, so I'm gonna eat lots of Christmas puddings and get really fat, and then for the next 3 months in January, I'm gonna try and lose all that weight and and lose those extra pounds from drinking too much beer and eating Christmas dinners over the next few weeks. So I'm doing it in stereotypical cliched fashion. I'm gonna feast out for the next 2 weeks, and then on the 1st of January, like the rest of the world, I'm going to get fit again.
No, not like the rest. The rest of the world is going to say they're going to.
Yeah, true. Yeah.
Very few of us stick to it.
I read recently, actually, I think it's the 12th of January is the average length before the New Year's resolution runs out for most of the world. You get like 12 days, and then you go, "Oh, sod this! I'm going back to the pub or whatever." We all start grand ideas, don't we? People are gonna give up beer and smoking, and they're gonna run 5 kilometers a day and all these weird and wacky things. And then by not even mid-January, they're all out the window.
So maybe that's why they did the whoever made it up, the 12 days of Christmas, knowing that we couldn't last any longer.
Yeah, maybe you're right.
I love it. Oh, Jordan, I've absolutely loved this. I just think that you're going to say, "Oh, Karen, you're being too kind. I don't deserve it," and blah, 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 blah. But I think you're doing a bloody fantastic job. But I don't know, it's a fun job. It's a fantastic job running around the world, but you're just doing so many good things. And you don't have to do that. Like you could say, I was a soldier and now I'm just going to go and do extreme sports to make myself happy. But you're not. You're giving, you're doing it to make the world a better place. And I don't care what you say. I'm the boss. This is my podcast.
Thank you. No, you are super kind, and it's been great fun actually chatting to you. Sometimes you do these podcasts and you get asked the same questions, but you've got plenty of energy. You've asked me new questions, so it's been a genuine pleasure to speak to you this morning for me, this evening for you, and it's been great fun. And you're doing amazing work as well. You're promoting positivity in the world, and that I salute you for that. So keep going and don't give it up.
I won't give it up. Thank you so much. By the way, everyone says, every single person finishes this interview and says, "That was the best, that was the most fun I've ever had on a podcast." Everybody says the same thing.
I agree. You can have that one. I'll give you that one.
I absolutely love it. Well, thank you so very much. I know, before I forget, because I've been forgetting this lately, where can people find you?
Yeah, so my website is jordanwylie.org, or I'm using. I took a year off social media actually, but I came back on in October. And you can find me on Instagram is at Mr. Jordan Wylie, or on LinkedIn I use as well. I've gone away from sort of Twitter and Facebook. I find them quite toxic environments sometimes. Yeah. So yeah, Instagram if you want to see what adventures I'm up to, or LinkedIn if you want to, I don't know, chat more professionally, let's say.
Or just connect. I mean, you and I don't chat
just professionally.
Connect, yeah. We just connect like humans. So
absolutely.
I'm going to put all those in links in the show notes anyway, so people can follow you and see what you're doing. So, Jordan, thank you so much, and I really appreciate you giving us the time. Really do.
No, cheers, Karen. Absolute legend, and I will stay in touch and keep the positive energy across the world. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thanks, Eves. See ya.
See you later.
Ta-da, see ya.